Good morning, class. Sorry I couldn't be with you this morning. I know there was been a little bit of confusion with some of you on the graphing calculator, and today you're not going to move on. You get a chance to do some additional practice. So I'm going to try to work through a problem via video. I'll try to refer to this sheet. So hopefully I can clear up some of the things, do stuff on the calculator, and hopefully that will get you going. There is no new assignment. I just want you to continue working on the assignment that we began. Some of you may already be complete, and that's great, and maybe you can help out some people who have questions as well. But here we go. What I'm going to do is I've got a practice problem we're going to do. I've got a table of some median incomes from the U.S. From various years from 1970 to 2002. So we'll be putting this data into the calculator in just a little bit. But I want to remind you, anytime that your calculator gets reset, we have to go and turn the diagnostics on. And so there's a set of instructions here to go to the catalog. There's another way to do it too, especially if you're using one of the borrowed calculators. If you're using one of the borrowed calculators, you should be able to go to Mode, and you'll see here, third from the bottom right now, it says Stat Diagnostics. You can turn them off or on. Mine are off right now. So you can, whoops, let's try that again. Let's turn them on, okay? If yours doesn't have that option, then you go through, you hit the catalog button. The catalog button is right here. Notice the 0 right above it in blue is because catalogs. You hit second in catalog, then you scroll down until you find the diagnostics on and off, and then you can turn it on that way. But you have to make sure that's on first before we do anything else to be able to judge whether your line that we come up with eventually is good. So now what we need to do is we need to enter our data, and you have access to this sheet, but I know some people shared that they didn't understand, or the instructions were a little hard to follow, and I understand that. So hopefully this video will help. So we are going to enter some numbers. I'm going to adjust this camera view so we can see a little more. Okay, that should help us a little bit. So notice, I want to point out the two buttons here. To enter data into the list, you're going to first hit Stat and then hit Enter. So when I hit Stat, it brings me to this option. And it's on Edit right now, and that's what I want to do. That's why I'm going to go ahead and hit the Enter button. Enter button, of course, is in your lower right-hand corner. Brings you this. So I have data in from the other day, probably, or some point in time. If I want to quickly clear out the whole data, I can arrow up so that the list itself is highlighted, L2 is highlighted. If I hit clear and enter, I believe I have to hit enter after that, it'll clear the whole line out. So I'm going to clear out my L1 also, clear, enter. I wouldn't hit delete, it will delete the L1 entirely, but you want to hit clear. So that's a way to quickly clear out the data without having to reset, because anytime you reset, you have to go turn your diagnostics on. So once we're clear, we're ready to enter the data. And so here's my list 1. I'm going to enter the years, 1970, 80, oops, 1985, 1990, 95, 98, 2000, 2002. Now I'll arrow over to L2, and I'll put in these median incomes. It's hard to believe that the median income was less than 10,000 in 1970. You should notice, it's worth double checking to make sure you have things correctly, but you should pay attention to the fact that we should have the same amount of numbers in both lists. And if I scroll up to my last one, notice down here in parentheses it says L2 in parentheses 8 means that was the 8th thing. So it looks like there's 8 numbers in both columns, and they better match up. That's good. So we've got the data entered. I want to get out of this now. I want to go to quit, which is right here in blue, right above mode. So hit second quit or second mode to get out of there. And let me change pages on our instructions here. So now that we have the data entered, we're ready to do a scatter plot. And so you have the y equals button in the upper left hand corner. Above it in blue it says stat plot. That's where I want to go. So second stat plot. And you can see mine are turned off. You can see that because it says off, off, off. I only need the first one anyway. But I'm going to enter on this first one. I want to turn it on. That's the first thing I'm going to do is turn it on. Scroll down. I'm going to choose the scatter plot option, which is the first one. I want to make sure that my X list and Y list match the list that I used, L1 and L2. If for some reason, whoops, well, let's say you need to change it. How do you change it if you need to change it for whatever reason? So I deleted mine, so I've got to put in an L1. Your lists, L1, L2, L3, are located in blue right above the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So right above 1 in blue it says L1. So that's what I want to enter for my X list. My Y list should be L2. You can choose if you wanted to change the mark that it puts at each spot. That doesn't matter. Some of the calculators, if you use one of my borrowed ones, you'll have an option to choose color there. You can change your color if you want. And looks like we're ready to go here, so I'm going to second quit to get out of that screen. One thing I should probably also have you do before, assuming you haven't reset your calculator, hit your y equals button and see if there's any equations that are stored here. If you did if you did one of the homework problems or the problem we did as an example and you haven't cleared it out, it probably still exists there. So just hit clear. I have 2 of them to clear out. So you want to make sure you've got a fresh start, nothing entered there. Notice in the upper left, plot 1 is highlighted. It shows that it is turned on, and I did turn plot 1 on, so that's good. Let's go ahead and get out of here. You'll notice if you look at your sheet, so we used second y equals. We dealt with all of this, and we exited. And now they say exit, but actually it's quit on the calculator. But now we're going to have to change the window, because if I try to graph this, we're not zoomed out to the right x and y values. So we're going to hit window, which is right next to y equals. Right now mine is set from 60 to 75 for some reason. My first year was 1970, so maybe I want to start at 1970. And then we go into 2002. So you can go directly to those numbers if you want to go like 1968 to 2004 and give yourself a little bit of margin. You can do something like that as well. The X scale, I don't really want to go every 3 years. Maybe I'll go every 10 years. And then, yeah, we're starting at 1970, so it'll put a dash at 80, 90, etc. Y scale, the smallest number we had was 9,867. I'm going to maybe go 9,500. And we got up to a little over 51,000, so I'm going to go, let's just call it 55,000. Maybe I'll do 10,000 increments on my scale. Okay, so now I believe that I'm ready to graph. Let's say graph and let's see how it looks. Good, and you see points, and it does look to be it does look pretty linear. So that's good. So now we've got it plotted. Let me go to the next page on our instructions. This is where we do the lines, the regressions. And so there's a lot of information on this page. You don't need to know a lot of it right now. But we want to go to stat, and you're going to arrow to the right. So stat is near your arrow buttons. We're going to arrow to the right to that very first option, the Calc menu. And I think you can see that reflected right here in this box. They're showing, they have the Calc menu drop down highlighted, and they're going to choose, and it shows you this kind of screen. You see some options here. You can see a bunch of different regressions. Let's go down. We're going to go to linear regression, number 4, the AX plus B. So we're going to choose that option. Oh, notice I need to change my list. My X list says L2. I want L1 there. And then L2. Don't worry about the frequency list. I do want to store this because I want to be able to graph it. So I don't want to just find the regression. I want to actually graph it. So yeah, it doesn't. Sorry, I was looking to see if we have those instructions here. They're right here. So if you want to store it, you were looking for the variable button, var. They abbreviate it with vars, and vars is located just kind of right below your arrows. So hit your vars button, and you're going to arrow to the right, and then hit enter. So arrow to the right. Notice that we're in the y variables now, and we want the very first option, the function. So hit enter. It gives you all of these different equations you could store it as. I just want to store it as y1, so I'm going to choose the first option. You could choose it for a different option if you, for whatever reason you wanted to, but then hit calculate. And it brings up the screen, and we don't want to change screens right away. I'm going to jot some things down because this is really the equation that's going to answer my questions, and I want to point out a couple of things on it. You'll notice it's in the form y equals ax plus b, and then they tell you what a is and what b is. So a is about 1,349.87, we'll call it, if we're talking money. And that gets multiplied by x, because that was your a value, plus now your b value, which is a negative actually. Oh, it's a huge number. So negative 2,650,768.34 if I round to the nearest penny. That's the equation that models my data. And I want to point out to you, when we turn the stat diagnostics on, when we do that, it gives us these R values. We're going to focus in on the bottom one, the R, just not R squared, but R. If this number is really close to 1 or negative 1, you have a really reliable equation, or it fits the data really well. So I'm at 0.9969. That's really close to 1. So this equation is a very good equation. We would call this a strong correlation. And because the R value is positive, we could say that this is a strong, sorry, should have wrote strong first, a strong positive correlation. And the positive piece just means the slope is positive. It's going uphill. If your R value is negative, we know it's a negative correlation. It's going downhill. But if it gets close to negative 1, then it's going to be strong. If it's not close to 1 or negative 1, then it's a weak correlation, or maybe there's no correlation at all. In this case, we would say we have a strong positive one. So if we're asked about that, that's how we could reply. Now let's hit graph. Because I stored it, we're going to see that line show up on there. And I would say it fits that data pretty well. And now you could use that equation to help you predict future values. It's not necessarily a part of what we're doing, but I'm going to show you this. I'm going to click on table. Let's see. I'm thinking I can do this. I'm going to try something. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, so we have now a list in our table for Y1. I don't want to start here at year 33. Remember, we started at year 1970, so the year 33 is way back there. Doesn't make sense. So I'm going to go into my table set, which is right above window, second table set, and maybe I want to see what the median income is going to be this year, 2017. So I'm going to tell it to start at 2017. Okay, let's hit the table now. And so it says the median income, according to this equation, would be $71,913.66. according to that equation. So you could predict future values based off of that equation. All right, so I want you to work on the assignment that I assigned last time and finish it up for next time.